And I will start screen sharing as well. While I'm screen sharing, it's pretty challenging to see the chat, but I'll do my best here. Right, it looks like we're sorted with the recording having begun and screen sharing taking place. So thank you for your time today in joining the Rapido monthly update for December 2023. My name is Megan Weldon. I'm Rapido product manager, and I will be presenting our webinar session today. Okay, the outline for our session today is as follows. First, we'll discuss items of the Rapido community. Then we'll cover the January release. And then as it is the end of the year, I wanted to address some of the 2023 development highlights so that we're all familiar with the various things that have come out in Rapido this year. Okay, our first topic of community, the Rapido community. Within this topic, the first item that I want to speak to is welcome to the University of New England, Australia. They're our most recent library to go live with Rapido, bringing us to 113 live libraries. A few additional highlights for this year are that Rapido implementation occurred in many different places. We saw growth in US, UK, Switzerland, Australia, and New Zealand with libraries going live in these places. We had our milestone this year of seeing 100 live libraries. The community spoke to their experiences with Rapido. It was incredible to get to hear some of that at our various conferences and events. And 2023 saw a lot of new pod creation, including an international pod. So a lot of new partners, a lot of connection, and a lot of great conversations this year within the community. One of those conversations or connections that happened this year was in the form of various case studies and stories. We worked with a lot of libraries to help share their Rapido story and hear them speak to their experience. If we haven't worked with you in this way and you would be interested in working with us, we would be happy to do so. You can send me an email and we can work on a small write-up together or a small quote, or it could be a lengthier project too if that was of your interest. But if you want to have your Rapido story told and available to others to access, let's work together and get it out there so that folks can hear your story. Another item relevant to our community is that the second round of the NERS voting results have come through. You might have seen that on the Rapido listserv from the Rapido working group already. I just wanted to acknowledge the 4 items that had the top votes from the community, and from here they will be in our 2024 roadmap. Speaking of 2024, something that's I think is relevant to all of you today is that these monthly update webinar sessions will continue in 2024. At the end of our session today, I'll make sure to include the link in the chat so that you can get registered and have the monthly sessions on your calendar for you to attend or and engage with the recording at a later date. Okay. Now to speaking about our January release highlights. So these will be items that you'll see in the January release in the new year. The first one being an item that sits well within our theme of connect and connecting with partners. So to start out this topic and start speaking to this release, I want to reference back to a July release. In the July release, there was a development that came out that allowed for self-registration. It's a really useful development when maybe you're working with an organization or institution or individual that lack a resource sharing solution or other means to connect. If configured, when folks go to the login screen, they'll get that not a member yet, register here option, and the user can then register as an individual or organization, and that selection of individual or organization makes a difference in the registration form. So you can have those 2 different forms there depending on who is registering. To enable this self-registration functionality, you need to configure that. It's not just an out-of-the-box aspect, as not everybody may want to be allowing this at their library. But if you want to, you will go under Configurations, Discover a Display Configuration, and then Configure Views. From that General tab, as long as the Display Rapido functionality is checked, you'll see that option to allow self-registration, and you can select that checkbox. If you allow self-registration, there's another aspect to configure, and that is under configuration and under resource sharing and borrower self-registration. Here you'll see that you need to define which user group those users will result in if they do that self-registration process. And that can be different user groups based on if it's an individual registrant or an organization type registrant. And you can customize that form that they see so that the field names meet your preferences. So if you want to create a different user group for the use of this, you can to be tracking that in analytics or however else you might want those differences to be. Maybe you have a visiting scholar user group or any other naming convention. And the next part, the next slide here really speaks to what's new about this functionality with the January release. Here we go. And that is still, it will be still configured under that same configuration pathway. You'll still define the user groups for these self-registered users. Your user group will still determine the resource sharing request experience and discovery experience that they get when they log into your library search experience. You can still customize the self-registration form, but what's new with the January release is that you'll be able to opt to have the self-registered user also create a corresponding partner. So it creates a partner record for you with the profile type as an email partner. And this is something that you can choose to do within the same configuration of same place that you access your self-registration configuration. If you choose to have it create the corresponding partner with the January release, you can view the partners that are created. This slide speaks to how the fields map from that registration form into the partner profile itself. So, the names go into the partner name, the email address goes into the email address, the username will become the partner code, and again, the profile type is email, so it is an email partner. By default, these partners that are created through the self-registration process will have these checkbox selected of self-registered and new request alert. So it will be clear to you in that partner record that it was created via a self-registration process, and your requests coming from these partners will result in a alert so that you can engage with it how you want, and you can make sets based on that alert. If you choose to no longer have alerts on this partner, perhaps you've managed your first few requests from them, or you don't want to receive alerts in the beginning, you can go to the partner record and you can deselect that new request alert option so that you no longer get alerts for this partner. Speaking to alerts, this is going to be a new alert that you'll see in your environment. To configure lending alerts, you'll find that under Configuration, Resource Sharing, and Manage Lending Alerts. This new alert is named New Request, created for partner, is enabled by default. And so you'll see it here as automatically enabled with the January release, and it'll be a new alert within the alerts list, but it will automatically be turned on for those partners that register through that process. Okay, our next development for the January release relates to our theme of Optimize. So currently today, as many of you may be familiar, In order to disable lending temporarily for your Rapido requests, you'll be doing this in two different places, in both Rapido and in the Rapid ILL web pages. So in order to become temporarily inactive today for the requests that come in through your Rapid ILL partners, you have to log into the Rapid ILL website, select your settings, and go to lending off hours and make an entry of a new time and date range for that to disable you as a lender temporarily for your Rapid ILL partners. Additionally, if you want to disable your lending further, you'll have to do that in Rapido itself. You'll need the General System Administrator role, and under your configuration settings, General Libraries, add a library, edit a library, and then from the Resource Sharing Library Summary tab, you'll select Temporarily Inactive for Lending and define the inactive date range. So some of you may be thinking about performing both of these configurations with some maybe library closures coming up. And for now, you will need to do it in both of these places. But in the January release, we have an option for you to consolidate these configurations. With the January release, we'll have a new parameter that enables you to perform all of the lending off times within Rapido, and you'll enable this parameter via configuration, fulfillment, general, and then other settings. This parameter is named there, the RS update rapid with lending off time. It's currently default set to false and that's how it will be when you see your in the January release, but you can set it to true if you want to allow your temporary inactive times in Rapido to be the one place that you are addressing those off times. If you have this set to true, no, and I'll jump to the next slide so you can see that here. So this is the place that I'm referencing to have it be all done in one place if you set that parameter to true. Note that if you have set that parameter to true and you have a date range in here, it will override date ranges that you plug into the Rapid ILO web pages. So that's something for you to be aware of with this parameter, but it can consolidate your lending temporarily inactive lending to be one configuration by enabling that parameter. Okay, this next development that you'll see in the January release relates to our theme of personalize, as it allows you to personalize the way that you engage with your partners. So to be mindful, these functionalities relate to costs with your partners. This is going to be relevant to you for your email or ISO partners, as your pods that you connect, your partners that you connect to via the pods. The costs between you and those partners are defined by your pod policy terms. So if your pod is a reciprocal pod, no cost, it's defined that way. If your pod does have a charge, it will be defined within that pod itself. But for working with your non-pod partners, there are some new fields and parameters that will be useful to you. One of those new partner fields being the Enable Direct Charge functionality. Once you select that Enable Direct Charge functionality checkbox, other fields become visible for you to engage with. One of those being the copyright payment field, which you can select the values of borrower responsibility or lender responsibility. It does default to borrower responsibility, so you'll only toggle it to lender responsibility on that partner record if you've had that understanding from that partner. Another field that becomes available to you is the maximum request cost field, and you can define that for your partner. An additional field is the Use Consolidated Billing field, and that'll be a checkbox that you can select to enable to inform you of billing practices to use with this partner at your library. When you define the maximum request cost for your partner, it does have workflow implications as well. So the maximum request cost, if it is hit, you will see an alert about that in the request itself. And so you'll see that alert, And I'll jump to the next slide so you get the next visual of what this looks like in your workflow. And if you dismiss that alert, you are choosing to override the max cost that is in that field. If you, as it is an alert, you can make a set with that alert being a parameter of your set. And perhaps you are updating that request without going to the request specifically. You're doing it from the shipping screen. Know that there will be a pop-up message to inform you so you can make your decision there. So that's helpful for you to know if you would be exceeding the max cost without looking at the request and the alert itself. Okay, so that covers the items that I wanted to speak to for the January release. I'm going to just check the chat to see if there are any questions or comments on those items before I begin a review of um, all of the items from this, for all of 2023. Oh, I'm sorry. I am not seeing any questions yet at this time, so I'm just going to continue on these items. So the 2023 development highlights, none of these things are new, and you will find them in our release notes. Each of these slides that I'm sharing with you, I have acknowledged the month that it was released, so if you have further information needs, you can find it on the release notes that were released for that month. So just run through some of these releases. There were more items than this, but I think these are some of the highlights to be aware of and familiar with so that you can be using them at your library. So one of the items from the first release of this year was about the Find Partner workflow. So the Find Partner workflow is a workflow that you can perform perhaps when a request goes unfilled or you're needing to otherwise find a partner for the request. And it helps you find partners that are in the directory and have enabled data sharing, but they might not be partners that you're yet connected with within your pods. The Find Partner workflow lets you communicate, send an automated notice to those partners, inquiring as to their capacity or interest to be your partner, letting them know what you would like to borrow from them. With the January release, that letter can has an option for the end that other partner to download you as a partner to ease the process of getting connected, to make that easier for that connection to occur. Another item from the January release was the batch article delivery job. So this item allows you to configure a folder connection and a job that can be run up to every hour. And what's helpful about this job is it can automatically send articles for you. So it's really useful for the digitization workflow. Maybe you've got a stack of items that you're digitizing. You can save the PDF or file name as the internal identifier field name and then save it into the corresponding folder that you have configured here, and the job can run up to that frequency that you determine and scoop up those articles and send them on for you to fulfill and complete those requests. So there's an automation from the January 2023 release. Another aspect from the 2023 release was being able to customize your views and actions. I'll let you read about that a bit further should you want to engage with this topic, but there's a lot of capacity for you to customize your experience there. In January, we also saw the release that allowed us to enrich from the global index or search the global index scope within our Rapido environments. I'll speak more to this later because there are a few other releases on this topic that have expanded from the January release. In March and other releases throughout this year, we've added new fields to the Rapido letters, many of which are not in the out-of-the-box template. So within our documentation, you'll find a table that shows various fields that can be added to your letters that may be useful to you. Some of them may be useful to you in your correspondence with your partners. Others might be useful to you as you use the letters as printouts for as shipping labels or book slips, hold shelf book bands, etc. So there's some various fields that have been added to be available to you that you can integrate into your letters to have the information that you want in those letters. Okay. Another release item relates to the lending workflows here is for you to exclude non-work days from the expiry period. So a way to explain this release is if you're participating in a pod that has a 3-day expiry period, perhaps if you get a request end of day Friday, you might feel crunched for time for getting that request shipped out and taken care of from your library. If you're sorry, and that's with the assumption that perhaps you don't have staffing on Saturdays and Sundays. It could be different days of the week too. But say this is a concern for you, you can indicate which days you don't have that staffing consistently, which days are your non-staffed or weekend days or whatnot, and then those days are not counted in the expiry days and then count for that your pod's expiry period. So hopefully that makes sense. So you would no longer be crunched for time if you had a 3-day pod expiry time and the request came in on Friday, with this distinction of your operations not being staffed Saturday and Sunday. Another part of the another release that has an impact on your lending workflows here is the visibility of your physical holdings in the right-hand pane of your lending view. Okay, and then there were quite a few aspects or releases related to mediation rules. I'm just going to highlight a couple here. This first one being a new action available to you within your mediation rules. And that action is to automatically cancel the request. Here you can see a cancel request and a cancellation reason and cancellation note, which actually gets sent on to your end user who placed the request. So perhaps you are receiving a lot of requests for us under various parameters that you are spending a lot of staff time processing by canceling them, or otherwise inconvenient for you to have to cancel these requests. You can add parameters, your regular mediation rule parameters, to help those requests be auto-canceled with the communication that you want your end user to receive. Another mediation rule parameter from releases this year included the ability to mediate on ISBN and ISSN, and you'll do that through uploading an Excel list, and then you can mediate those requests, whether it's for review or using the auto cancel action, whatnot. It allows you to distinguish based on ISBN or ISSN what requests you want to have some level of mediation on. Okay, sticking with borrowing workflows, there were borrowing alerts added this year, one of them being a canceled by patron alert, which is useful to you in the situation where the item has already been shipped, it's already in transit to your library, so it can't be canceled because it's got an open request attached to it, but your end user has canceled that request. So it allows you to distinguish which requests are needing to go right back to the lenders. Again, you can look at alerts via sets, you can look at them in the request itself, and there'll be that pop-up notice indicating to you what's happening, so you know why that request needs to just go right back to the lender. Okay, another item and that from 2023 releases include the capacity to borrow and lend physical journal titles. As a lender, you'll have to enable this. It's not It's up to you to decide if you want to lend your physical journals from your collection. And as a borrower, you'll be configuring the display logic rules to allow this type of requesting or requesting of this type of content from by your end users. Another item from the borrowing workflows or for the borrowing workflows in the 2023 release highlights is the capacity to convert request type. So perhaps a request came in as a book chapter, but really it's an article, or you need it to be a physical book, etc. You can convert that request type. This action is going to have limitations based on the status of the request at the time, but it is there for you to use. When you need to make that change on your requests. Okay, another borrowing workflow aspect from our releases from 2023 include the print slip option in the borrowing side of things. Previously, this only existed in the lending side, and now it's there in the borrowing. You can select requests to print slip for the first time or use it as a reprint option if you want. And it is going to generate the letter corresponding to the request status. So the request status is going to be a determining factor. So if the request has not yet been received, there are no relevant letters to the Rapido workflow to generate, so you will get a notice saying that nothing is going to print there. But if you have selected requests that do have relevant letters to be generated, it will confirm that printing. Okay, an aspect from our September 2023 release is this little checkbox: do not retrieve local records from CDI. You find it under Configuration, Discovery, Display Configuration, then Configure Views. It's a means to reduce duplicity in the discovery results within the central index scope, as your end users will only find one result record of your holdings in that CDI search instead of two, or instead of possibly discovering two. Okay, and here is an opportunity to expand on the releases related to the Enrich from Global Index workflow action and the Global Index search scope. So that functionality came out in January, and then in November we added the capacity within this search scope or within this workflow action to also now see potential partners. The libraries you see here are libraries who have enabled the resource sharing profile. So if you haven't enabled that at your library yet, I really would encourage you to do so. It's really helpful for other libraries who have Rapido who may want to borrow from you, as it allows them to find if you would potentially be a lender for their outstanding requests. So this, as a borrower, this workflow is really useful. This Enrich from Global Index is useful if a request is not yet filled, can't be filled, can't find a match, what have you. In this example here, there are multiple holdings of that dog title, but this second option has relevant partners for my library on it. So I'm going to select this request record, select this item record to pull in the data into my request, because perhaps the different author or the different year that my patron had submitted with a request information meant that I didn't get a result. But by changing that request data, I can now get a result, and that has partners associated with it. This screenshot here is showing to create requests. So again, if you were to be manually creating a request for an end user by doing a global index search result, you'll get that same visibility too. All because of the November release update here, but really because also libraries have that data sharing profile enabled. Okay, and then this is a recent release, getting to December highlights. We spoke to this just last month with the new lender price fields for the cost rules that you would create on partners who are email partners or ISO partners. The new fields being base fee, page overage fee, copyright fee, service level fee that you can define in your lending cost rule to have apply to those various partners and the requests between you and them. And one of those pieces being the base fee page and page overage calculation. There's workflow aspects to that too, that let you know what those fees are as it has calculated the different fees based on the page is submitted within the request. And you can see these developments also included visibility of these request costs in both the borrowing and lending requests between those partners. Okay, I think this is my last 2023 highlight. There are more things, but I will let you reference the 2023 release notes. But this one is most relevant to libraries in the US who are connecting to a pot of partners called Rapid Returnables Partners. Previously, they did not have the ease of getting the addresses from these partners. Now these partners' addresses are visible just like they are for any other Rapido partner and are accessible in the Rapido letters like they would be for any other partner. Okay. Oh, a couple last items to speak to for 2023 was also the addition of many out-of-the-box analytics reports. So here's just a list of some of the borrowing reports available to you to use in looking at your Rapido analytics, and a few lending reports as well that came out in addition to your capacity to make your own reports that speak to your interests in Rapido. So thank you for your time today. I'm going to stop sharing so it's easier for me to see the chat and engage with you if you have any questions today. Okay. I'm not yet seeing any questions in the chat, but I'll give us a few moments in case there's any questions or thoughts from the content today. And I will start sharing a few of the things that I wanted to share with you as far as links from our content today. Okay, so I wanted to share the release notes. I'll share that next. But first, the monthly webinar registration option for you. So this is the link for you to go to register for these monthly update webinars as they'll continue next year. It'd be great to have your attendance so that you can see all of the content coming out each month and stay up to date with our monthly updates. All of the items that I spoke to today regarding 2023 release highlights can be found on in our documentation release notes too. So here's the link for that release note documentation for your reference if you want to go back to any of those items. Okay, so I'm starting to see some questions come in and and I'll do my best here to address your questions. And if there's anything I don't address, I'm also going to throw my email into the chat so that we can continue our conversation further. Okay, so I see a note regarding feeling a bit confused about how the GTI works from the November 2023. When we share, do we share our holdings? So what the data sharing, how I'm interpreting this question to mean is how does data sharing profile really come into play? And so with the data sharing profile, it allows Rapido enabled. What it does then is it allows Rapido to find if your library holds that item for other Rapido libraries and gives them that information. So when a library does the global index search from within Rapido or performs that enrich from global index within Rapido, they're discovering, they're seeing results, but they're only seeing a library's name next to that result if the library has enabled the data sharing profile. So if there are further questions on this, we can try to correspond through the chat to get clarity on what they are. Or if you want to email me, we can have a further conversation as well. Okay, hopefully I addressed your question, and if not, happy to connect with you further on that topic. Okay, I'll give folks a few more minutes to plug in their questions if there's anything that they wanted to um, address today. You all have my email address too, in case things come to you at a later date or time, we can correspond. Okay. If you don't have any questions for me, please, I encourage you to register for the 2024 webinars. It's great to have that space to share updates and questions. I look forward to seeing you in the sessions in 2024 and staying connected with you. Okay, I don't see any further questions in the chat. If something comes to mind, please reach out. Happy to discuss today's topics, or if you're needing another meeting at your library, happy to work with you with that as well. Take care, everyone.